Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's DuxSoup webinar. In this webinar, Giles Garnett, the Head of Professional Services, will show you how to use DuxSoup Turbo and Make, the former Integromat, to launch LinkedIn lead generation workflows. Live chat is being monitored by me, Jin, the Head of Customer Support, and at the end of the webinar, we will have a Q&A with Giles. Thank you so much for joining us today, and let's start our webinar.
Hello and good morning, good afternoon or good evening to everyone wherever you may be in the world, and thank you for joining us for the latest of our series of free webinars. As you can see today, we're going to be talking about DuxSoup and Make. Make is, as Jin just mentioned, formerly known as Integromat. For anyone who's new to DuxSoup or these webinars, my name is Giles and I am the Head of Professional Services here at DuxSoup, and I've been presenting these webinars for the last couple of years. As mentioned, we're going to be looking at Make, and how we can then make our integrations work with DuxSoup and see what the possibilities are. As always, Jin, who you just heard from, our Head of Customer Support, will be monitoring the live chat and answering as many of your questions as possible. I always call it the chat, but I think it actually comes in the under questions. So yeah, I should probably amend that. Yeah, there's only one box that you can put your messages into. So yeah, use that one for your questions. Try and keep your questions on topic so that they're useful for the entire audience. And if you've got other questions, you can always contact our support team via the live chat on our support pages. As always, yes, the session is being recorded and will be made available via the usual channels. Yeah, so if you've registered, you'll get that in your mailbox in due course, and then the next day or two, it'll also appear on our website. Please note, the integration with Make is only available for those with a DuxSoup Turbo subscription. So if you don't yet have Turbo, when you first install DuxSoup, you get a free 14-day Turbo trial. So feel free to give it a go and see if it meets your requirements and have a play around with it. Those 14 days are completely obligation free. It's one of those things you can have a proper play around with it and hopefully see what the possibilities are. Just in case there's anybody who's new to these webinars, what is DuxSoup? It's a Chrome extension. It's compatible with other Chrome-based browsers, which you can use to mimic human behavior on the LinkedIn platform. And that's on both free Sales Navigator and Recruiter. You basically define the list of people that you want DuxSoup to take its actions against, and then you get DuxSoup to run its activities against it. And it happens in the browser, which is really important from keeping your account safe point of view, keeping your LinkedIn accounts safe point of view. All of the mouse clicks are mimicked so that it really does look like it's a human being doing the actions. So that's what DuxSoup is. It's a Chrome extension. You install it from the Chrome Web Store. What is Make? So Make is a no-code platform that allows you to build automated processes. Now, they do advertise themselves as more than just a no-code platform, because there are a huge number of other possibilities there as well, but the emphasis is very much on visual process and task building. And you can use it to automate your data flow collection and alignment, and also to standardize your processes in an efficient way, to have easily repeatable things occurring in the background, certain actions triggering another series of actions as well there. It's not a Zapier webinar, so I'm not going to mention Zapier too much, but Make is basically an alternative to Zapier. It's one of those things that you know, we often talk about Zapier as like an industry standard, but Make is very much an alternative that's available to you. Why would you use DuxSoup Turbo and Make? Well, you would do it to basically bring all of your tools together to make sure that all your correct data is arriving in the right place at the right time. And to be honest, the possibilities are almost endless. They are finite, but there's over 1,200 apps currently integrated on Make, and that number is always growing. So while I'm presenting and while I'm touching on a few examples and bits and pieces, have a think about the tools that you're using. I've seen quite a lot of tools being used already with DuxSoup and in Make, which I'll mention towards the end as well. But have a think about what tools you're using and what platforms you need your data to arrive in, and maybe put that into the question box, because Jin can have a quick look and see if it does work with Make, and we can look at the possibilities perhaps in the Q&A towards the end. So have a think about what what your ecosystem looks like from a data point of view, be it that's some sort of CRM that we've maybe not touched upon before, some other sort of database perhaps. Now, as mentioned, you can only make use of this functionality if you've got DuxSoup Turbo. That gives you access to the API and, importantly, the webhook functionality, which is the method used to send your data to your required location. And similarly, so that needs to be enabled, but we'll go all through all of this in the demo. Similarly, the remote control, which allows you to send commands for DuxSoup to execute. So you can have any of these commands that you see here on the right-hand side. All of those are sort of the standard commands that you can get DuxSoup to carry out during a profile auto visit. So all of those can be sent as commands. You can familiarize yourself with all of this terminology, if I'm going a bit too fast, by checking out our support pages. There's all the appropriate documentation, how to use it, how to go through it there. But what I'm trying to do is touch on from a high level perspective what the possibilities are. So I'm going to go through a couple of high level examples of some integrations. And we've done this before, but not since Integromat became Make a few months ago. So this is a bit of a refresher to familiarize yourself with how the platform looks and how you match up your required fields as to where you want them to go. So I'm going to demo a couple of very straightforward things. So something very straightforward in Google Sheets. I'll touch on maybe fresh sales, CRM, Slack, which is quite a useful one, which I've seen being used quite a lot by people who want to monitor their incoming messages via a platform such as Slack. But be aware, these are just examples to give you ideas. And I mean, just to show you some of the recent examples that I've seen as well. Here's a list of things that I've seen people integrating through Make. So I've seen people using Google Sheets. Even though DuxSoup has an integration already with Pipedrive and HubSpot, I've seen people using Make to extend the possibilities there, because of course our integration is a standardized integration. So some people who want more information or different information to arrive in their CRM, such as Pipedrive and HubSpot, they use Make as well. I've seen people using Job Adder, Salesforce, Zoho, Slack, as I mentioned, Redtail CRM, ClickUp, AutoClose, and Fresh Sales. Those are the ones that I could remember when I was going through my my notes earlier. I think there may be a couple of others as well, but those are just some examples of some of the platforms that people are using, and very often combinations. So I had a customer recently who was using, I believe it was Google Sheets and Job Adder. So they would have all of their data coming to Google Sheets, and it was only when they then changed a certain setting, a certain criteria on their Google Sheet, a certain column in the Google Sheet, that then triggered their prospect to appear in Job Adder. So that was quite a good one, because you probably sometimes don't want all of your contacts in LinkedIn to arrive in your CRM. You need some way to filter them. So that was quite an interesting way that I'd seen somebody set that one up fairly recently as well. So we're going to go through, as I say, a couple of examples. DuxSoup to Google Sheets. We'll start with that one. It's very straightforward. So hopefully we will go to Google Sheets. And what I've done here is I've created a very straightforward Google Sheet. As you can see here, the webinar demo for today. And I've created a Google Sheet here with a number of column titles. And this is the data that I'm looking for DuxSoup to gather for me during an auto visit. So here I'm actually going to gather their LinkedIn ID, the ID of the person whose profile I'm visiting, timestamp, first name, last name, the URL of their LinkedIn profile, that's very useful, their full name, their job title, who they work for, their location, and an email address. I've tried to hide that, but it's still slightly visible. But at least here you can see the sort of data that I'm going to try and gather now through Make and through LinkedIn. So if I now go back to, if I go to Make, so just in case anybody's not aware, the URL for Make is very straightforward. It's make.com. I suspect that cost them an awful lot of money, but that's where it is. So let's go into Make a second, and I don't want to be in there. I want to be in my scenarios. There we go. And if I go into here, we can see I've actually already built some of these scenarios for today, but I will walk through step by step how I've done that. So I've actually created one here, all visits with emails. And what we'll do is we'll actually build that one from scratch again so you can see how that's done. So I'm going to create a new scenario here, and this is where I want my DuxSoup actions to result in data appearing in my Google Sheet. So I'll press the plus button here, and this is where I choose my DuxSoup activity. So if I type in Dux, press enter, or maybe not, it doesn't do anything. Let's try that again. Dux. Reacting. Well, there we go. So it has come up there. So now we're going to go for DuxSoup, and because we're looking here for DuxSoup to listen out for some data, this is where we're going to ask it to carry out, basically monitor some data that's coming in. That's a watch data, and this is where I mentioned earlier webhooks. This is where we need to input our webhook information. So here we need to create a unique URL for our data. So here I'm going to say I want to gather visits with emails. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to listen out for visits to profiles, and I only want profiles that have got an email address. That's what I'm going to look for here. So I'm going to give that a title there of the webhook, press save, and then that creates me this unique URL here, which I'm going to copy to my clipboard, and then I'm going to put that into my DuxSoup options. So if I go to my DuxSoup options here, and I go to my connect tab, I'm actually going to overwrite this one that's here because that's the one I was doing earlier. And put that in there. So I've now this second one down here. So this is webhooks, and I'm only gathering visit data. So I've only got the visit option ticked there. So now I've done that, I will now press OK. So I've set that one up. What I now need to do to make sure I get some sample data to be able to build the rest of my scenario is I need to get some data in there. So I can go back to my DuxSoup options here, and we'll zoom in a little bit so it's a bit bigger, hopefully, for people. So here we are, it's the second one down here. I'm going to send some sample data to that URL. There we go, we've sent that one across. Now if I go here and I want to do that. I want to right click on there and go, right, run this module only. Hopefully it'll gather some data that I just sent to it. And maybe it didn't work, so we'll try that again. Send sample. Okay. There we go, it's picked up some data. So I see here now I've got a little indicator to say, yeah, there's some data here. Great. So what I can see here is there's some sample data being sent through from DuxSoup to this. There we are, we can see the timestamp there, 12 minutes past 5 where I am. Excellent. So now that I've got that there, what do I want to do with that data now? Now I want it to go to, as I mentioned earlier, Sheets, Google Sheets. It's reacting somewhat slowly right now, but there we go, it's there. So Google Sheets. Now I would then put in my Google credentials to make sure that my account was all linked up here. And this is where I want to say, well, I simply just want to add a new row to the bottom of my chosen spreadsheet. Add new row. And this is where I then put in my details, and then I say, right, what spreadsheet do I need it to go to? So I'm going to choose from a list, and it's the one that I've got up here, webinar demo. There we go, webinar demo, make 12th of July. There we go, add that one. Sheet name, because I've got a couple of different sheets here. So I'm going to click on visits. Does the table contain headers? Yes, it does. So what we see here now, we see these headers, the LinkedIn ID, the timestamp, first name, etc., etc. And this is where I now match up my data to the appropriate field. So we now, just from our drop-down box here, there's the LinkedIn ID. So I want the ID of the person who I'm visiting. I want the timestamp of the action. So I'm going to take the timestamp there. That's that one. I'm going to take their first name. So I'm going to just choose the correct field there. Last name there. There we go. Their LinkedIn URL, that can be kind of useful for if you're wanting to do other things with this. The full name, well, we can easily do that. We can just do first name space last name. There we are. Their job title, we'll add that one in there as well. Their company name, take that for the company. The location, there we go, that's that one. So hopefully this is pretty intuitive. And then email, if there is one, of course, we just make sure that we select the correct field there. And we're going to press OK. So there we are. We've now built our very simple integration here between DuxSoup and Google Sheets. Now I'm only interested in people who've got email addresses here. So I'm going to click on this little wrench or spanner here and set up a filter. Here I'm going to say, right, give this a little label, call it email filter, call it what you like. But here I'm going to add a condition that this field here, the email field, in this case I'm going to say contains, just for simplicity's sake, an @sign. That way I will filter out anybody for whom there isn't an email address. So there we are. We've now set up this one. I'm going to give this one a title a second, so I know what I'm doing. Webinar demo visits to Sheets. There we go. So I've given it a title. I've got it all here. I can now save that, and I can now turn it on as well. I'm going to delete what's in the queue because there was a couple of sample things in there. I'm now going to turn this on. So what I've done now is I've created that scenario, and I've set it up so that now if I carry out any auto visits or any visits to LinkedIn profiles here, and there's an email address available, it's going to fill that in here. Now thinking about that, there's also because I'm using this in standard LinkedIn, I'm actually going to add a second filter here as well. Doing this on the fly, sorry. I'm actually going to add another rule here. This is one of those idiosyncrasies of LinkedIn, and if you're doing this in regular LinkedIn, and this is all documented in our support pages as well. I'm going to say here, I'm only going to be interested in, where is it? The event, if it's an update event. And that's just because you get two lots of data through from LinkedIn when you do an auto visit. There's two phases to the activity. If you're doing this in Sales Navigator, it's slightly different. Everything's gathered in one go. We'll save that then. So there we go. We've done that. Just a quick aside now. We're just going to go to LinkedIn. So this is me. This is my LinkedIn page. Feel free to send me a connection request. I always say it's in the webinars. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me. Put a message in your connection request that you found me via DuxSoup. Quite happy to connect with other DuxSoup users and share information where I can. So yeah, that's me. So now I want to find my list of people that I want to auto visit in order to get them into my spreadsheet. So here I'm going to just do a very quick, let's just do a quick search for product managers. And we're going to add a couple of filters in here. We want to make sure it's people. And we want to only visit, in this case, I'm only going to visit first degree connections because then I know I'm likely to see email addresses of them, and then they should appear in my spreadsheet. That's the word I was looking for. So there we've done that. We've got that all set up. Now I know I've got my planner turned off, so I'm going to turn the planner on. I'm just going to turn that off a second as well because I don't want to. Right, we're going to turn the planner on. Where are we? There we are. That's that one. We'll save that, and we'll visit a few at speed, hopefully here, to get some data in there. So what I'm going to say to DuxSoup is I've got all my other options turned off. I'm just going to say to DuxSoup, please go and visit some profiles. And what we should see now is DuxSoup, during its auto visits to these particular profiles here, it will gather the information from each of these individuals and post that information into my webinar demo spreadsheet. So we can see here, we've got a couple of lines here already. If we go back to our scenarios here, we make sure that it's actually turned on. Oh, that's that one there. We did turn it on, didn't we? Webinar demo, there we are, that's the one there. We can see it's all turned on. What we should see now is, let's have a look. This is where you need to talk amongst yourselves while it carries out some activities. But there we are. It's now opening a profile in the bottom right-hand corner. If it finds an email address, we should see the details of this individual then appearing in our spreadsheet. Now you can do this, of course. It looks like there is an email for that person, so that should be good. That one should end up in our spreadsheet if everything's been set up correctly. Nothing like demonstrating it live to stress test the system. We'll wait until it's closed that profile, and then we'll have a look to see if that has appeared. Of course, this can be replicated for any sort of scenario you want, insofar as you could have set this up against a CRM or some other database or some other system or whatever it is that you're using, as long as you map those fields across. And now hopefully if we go here, there we are, we can see that that individual's profile at that time, so 20 past or 90 minutes past 3 Zulu time, which is effectively GMT, so 2 hours behind. Yep, that's just appeared in there. So I can now see that information now being populated here through. Oh, there we go. Another one's just come in as well. Oh, are we there? But no, that's one. So we can see there this information, because I put those filters in. I'm only getting them if they've got an email address, and that way you can properly filter the data that arrives in your chosen database. So that's a very straightforward way to get data into your spreadsheet. You can check and decide exactly which data you want in there. There's all sorts of other data that's available, as you saw from those fields that were there. Now, I've also got a couple of other scenarios here that I've set up. So you see here, I've got one called Dux to Fresh Sales. So in the same way that I had here webinar demo to Google Sheets, I've set one up here to Fresh Sales. Fresh Sales being a CRM that yeah, is available. I'm not sure where the price point of it, of course, but what I've done here is I've set up a very similar thing. You can see here this scenario is also processing, so it's set up in almost exactly the same way. It's a watch event. I've got a filter here to look for emails, and then I've got a process here to create a contact within Fresh Sales. So as I'm visiting in LinkedIn, and we can see the information here is appearing here in my spreadsheet, what I hope is happening as well is here in Fresh Sales, we should also see some profiles appearing here. So let's reload Fresh Sales and see if those same people are appearing there. There we go. We can see here exactly the same people. Their details are also appearing here in Fresh Sales. And that was set up in almost exactly the same way as I did the spreadsheet one. And all I did there, though, was within the scenario here, I connected my Fresh Sales connection, my credentials for my Fresh Sales account, and I just mapped the fields that I wanted again here. I put their ID in there. I did create a new custom field in order to gather the LinkedIn profile. So what we can do there is hopefully have a look back here, and if we take one of these examples, what we should see here is, yeah, we can see here this was created a minute ago. There's somewhere in here there will be contact fields. I suspect they'll be under here somewhere. There we are. There's the LinkedIn URL there of that particular individual. So you can see here, I've put the filter in there to only have email address qualified people to appear within Fresh Sales. Exactly the same way, I can then build my contact list here just by carrying out auto visits to them. And as we can see here, as I'm talking, more people are appearing in both Fresh Sales and in my spreadsheet here. So that's very straightforward to capture data there. And what I'm going to do there very quickly is just stop the robot, because otherwise we're going to be visiting lots of profiles very quickly, and I want to make sure that we don't break anything. So that's how we can get contact information and get data from our prospects. And of course, you don't have to use the filters that I explained there. I've talked about making sure that, for example, I only want people with email addresses. You could, for example, add a filter in here. Let's go back to here. So this is the email filter here. If I go back and just edit the scenario and show you the other possibilities there. There we go, that one. No, now I need to go to the edit button. That's where I needed to go. Here you can see here, if I wanted to send, maybe wanted to say, and perhaps I'm only interested in people who are the first degree connection. So I could, for example, say, I'm only interested in people who've data degree. I probably want to say here contains a number 1, for example. And that way I would then be sure that only first degree connections will appear in my CRM. Now, that's all very well, and that's great, because that's just listening out for stuff. Now, what we can also do with these scenarios is we can also build things to listen out for new connections and then trigger an action. So because when somebody goes from being a second or third degree connection to being a first degree connection, they become a little bit more interesting from a contact details point of view. What I'm going to do here is just create another new scenario here, and I'm going to let me just have a think. I'm going to go here, I'm going to go DuxSoup again. There we go, Just wait for that to load. It seems to be responding quite slowly at the moment, or maybe it's just the heat of the, just the weather here today, I'm not sure. So again here, I'm gonna say, right, I wanna watch for, is this what, yes I do, yeah, I wanna watch for new connections. And new connections are picked up by DuxSoup by what we call the message bridge. So I need to add a new webhook here. I'm gonna call this new connections. Except I can't type, there we go. New connections. I've got my URL here, so I'm going to copy that address to the clipboard again. I'm going to go back to my DuxSoup Connect tab, and I'm going to use the, I'm actually going to add a new one at the bottom here. Put the URL into there, and this is new connections I'm listening out for. So it's a message type event. So all of that is documented on our support pages. What I'm going to do now is say new connections, press OK here. And once again, I'm going to send some sample data from here. So I'll send some sample data from here. There we go. We'll run this once in order to get that sample data so we can then build our next step. Always doesn't seem to work first time. So we'll send another one. There we go. There we go. So we've now got some sample data. Now, what we see here is we've got a message received event, and that's all very well, but except that's actually an incoming message. So hi man, you're welcome. Yes, that's actually somebody messaging me. Now when we do this, if we now run this again, hopefully we should get an example of somebody sending me a connection acceptance request. Here we go, it's a message received, and there we are, it's an invitation accept. So this is great. This is what I wanted. I've now got this sample data to be able to perform my next step. What I want to do here is, because this would be somebody going from, say, being a second or third degree connection to being a first degree connection. So at that stage, I want to trigger an auto visit to their profile to get their more interesting information. So here I can then say, use DuxSoup, and I can use this to trigger any of these actions here. Now, in this case, I'm going to say, I want to auto visit this profile because they've become a first degree connection. So here we do that, and I need to define which profile I want it to visit. We click on here and we go to this one here. So it's this coming from our listening event here. We go there. It's that URL there. It comes from the from field there. It's this URL here. This is the person who's accepted my connection request. Great. So now what we can do, one thing to add there, I've added my DuxSoup remote control details into Make here. These details here at the bottom. This information here in order for that to all work. So now I've got, if somebody accepts my connection request, I'm going to auto visit them. What I want to do here is I actually want to add a filter to say I'm only interested in here people who are accepting my invitations. Otherwise we end up with a bit of a mix up here. So I'm going to say invitation _ accept. There we go. Otherwise we pick up lots of other data as well. One thing you might also want to do here is, we can also, no, it's not that one. We could add a sleep function in here. This is just a way of controlling things so things don't happen too quickly. So here I could say, for example, the number of seconds I want to delay things for. So if I wanted to say, for example, delay things for 30 seconds here, I could add a sleep function in here. There's a filter. We've got the DuxSoup picking up the new connection. We've got the sleep, then it's the filter, and then it will trigger the activity to visit the profile. If I now just run this, let's see if it's actually going to pick something up. I probably need to send another sample data through. See what it's going to do. It's now going to sleep for 30 seconds, of course. Because I set that up for sleeping for 30 seconds. But hopefully this gives you an idea as to different ways that you can use this to pick up different information, put different pieces in place. Because what will happen now is actually this is I'm going to stop this a second. Let's change this to 1 second. That's probably going to be better. And let's run it again. Process existing data. What we should see now is it's going to grab, there we are, and there we are. It's now triggered a visit to a profile, and it should have queued that up within my remote control. So if I go to my Dux Dash here, what I should see is a queued visit to a profile. Let's go to our queued activity. There we are. So that person there whose connection request got accepted, who's accepted my connection request, I've now triggered an auto visit to his profile, which will get carried out in due course. And then when the auto visit occurs, his data will then appear in my spreadsheet and in my CRM. So that way you can sort of see how you're triggering all of these things to occur, hopefully seamlessly, and how you can get those things to occur correctly. Just to touch on a few other bits and pieces that I looked at here as well. Let's just save that one a second, and let's go back to our scenarios. I've also got a couple of other things here that I've built just in case we got around to doing them. I'm not sure we're going to have time to do that today, but let's have a quick look. I built one here, all messages to sheets. So I've got one here whereby when an incoming message appears, I'm asking DuxSoup to add a row to a Google Sheet. And if I go to here, it's not turned on at the moment. Let's turn that one on. Let's process what's in the queue. And what we should see now is actually some messages should appear in here in due course. Maybe I need to send yeah. Basically, DuxSoup monitors for incoming messages, and what would happen then is you would actually see this data here being populated accordingly, because I've set this one up accordingly as well. Let's see if I can trigger something to appear in there. I think it was that one. Let's try it. You never know. Yeah, there we go. So you can see there, I was then able to get a message from this person to appear here in my spreadsheet. So I can actually see my incoming messages here, and that's all quite straightforward to do as well. Another one which I was looking at earlier, which is something that I know a couple of our power users use as well, is an integration with Slack. So here I built one with Slack, where you're again listening out for incoming messages through a webhook. You're only looking for incoming messages, and then you're having the message then appear in the appropriate Slack channel. If I can show you how that looks, let me pull up Slack a second. No, that's not what to do. There we go. So here, for example, you can see here I asked it to listen out for new messages, and here's a sample message that I had coming in. So new message, the time it was sent. Hi man, you're welcome, nice to have you in more contacts. And then I've even got the URL to the actual message that's coming in then as well. It's a really good way to be able to monitor your messaging in LinkedIn. If you don't want to be always in LinkedIn Messenger, you can then just monitor it through a Slack channel, for example. Great, I can see the message coming in and handle that accordingly. So all of these things are possible with Make. Also possible with Zapier as well, but Make has a slightly different flavor insofar it's a very much a graphical interface. It's a way of building different scenarios. And what we often see is people, if one thing happens, then go one route, and one thing that happens, go another route. So you can create forks in the road, as it were, in order to allow you to have all of those further possibilities. There are lots of templates as well. If you go to the templates within Make, I think there's even some with regards to DuxSoup. Let's have a quick look. There we are. If we look at DuxSoup here, you can see here that a number of different scenarios that people have already created within the system here, with different scenarios built out, how to handle different things. A router is the way that you split things. So here, yeah, connect DuxSoup with Google Sheets, with HubSpot, doing lookups in Pipedrive, for example, Google Contacts. Oh, Copper CRM, I've not seen that one before. There we go. Active Campaign I've seen before, certainly. So there's lots of different things here that people have already built. They've already built these templates within the system for you to have a look at, to play around with, and also to extend, because the templates are flexible. You can take a template and then adapt it to your requirements as well. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavor of Make and understand the update from Integromat. To be honest, it's not a huge upgrade, not a huge update, other than the fact that the name has changed. And yeah, I think their pricing model's changed a bit as well. And yeah, it does seem a little bit slicker than it was before. Before it was quite clunky, but it is, I think, a little bit smoother and a bit more reliable than it used to be. So what I've done is I've talked you through a few scenarios here with Google Sheets, Fresh Sales, Slack, how to send a remote control action, for example, as well. All of the different options there. We're constantly reviewing the API, the different commands, and I believe there's going to be some new commands available fairly soon. So if you're using, if you check out our documentation, there are some new commands that are available through the API. The integration with Make will be updated in regards to that soon. Some of the examples that I've seen here of integrations, but perhaps now would be the time to go to questions to see if people have got some specific examples or some specific questions around this that I can cover off during the call now.
Hi, Giles. Thank you for the webinar. Quick question. Is there benefit to Make versus Zapier?
To be honest, from my perspective, flip a coin. I know there've been some changes regarding pricing models, and I don't have all of the details of that, I'm afraid, John. You'll need to do some research on that yourself. Some of the limitations, I think you'll find there are more integrations in Zapier than there are with Make. Zapier is a little bit more established, of course, but you know, I certainly know a couple of users who, when they were starting up 18 months to 2 years ago, they looked at the pricing of Zapier, decided it was too expensive, and went for what was then Integromat, and have stayed with them because they're really happy with the service. They have a different pricing model. It depends on the volumes you're using, the number of scenarios you need to build, whether maybe you've got a team that you're working with and you need to share things across the team. They both have different packages and different pricing models for those sorts of things. It's just a case of whether what you're using works on that platform. Most of the integrations are pretty similar, to be honest.
Thank you. Another question would be, can this be integrated to send prospects LinkedIn messages, connection requests from outside? So for example, from CRM to DuxSoup rather than DuxSoup to CRM?
Absolutely. So as long as you've got the URL of the target, you can trigger an action from within Make. So if I just go back to scenarios here and I just show you create a new scenario. When we create a new scenario and we choose DuxSoup here, wait for it to load. Any second now. There we go. You can see here these remote control actions here. So with that disconnect, endorse, enroll, follow. So you can enroll them into a campaign, for example, send a connection request. So here you probably have another step before this in order to gather the URL of the profile, or maybe you've got a spreadsheet full of URLs, in which case you'd need to just get it to work through that list. See here, you send a connection request. Here you just need to be able to input the URL here accordingly. Now, actually thinking about it, I've got a scenario here that I built this morning, which is an example here. So this one here was where I built one basically, which would listen to my Google Sheet. This one here, which gathering the visit data, listening out for this one. And when a new line appeared in the Google Sheet, it would then trigger an endorsement action against this person. So here, let's go there. So here I'm saying, watch for a new row. When a new row appears, sleep for a few seconds, find the profile. So here we're then looking for the LinkedIn profile that's coming from this line here. And then I'm asking it to, the command I'm using here is endorse profiles. But of course you could use connection request or enroll profile, in which case you get the option then as well, which campaign you're enrolling them into. So yeah, you can, you know, if you've got, for example, a Google Sheet and you're populating that with the LinkedIn URLs, you can then trigger those sorts of activities. Similarly, you know, if a new contact appears in your CRM with the appropriate URL in the appropriate field, you can do the search in that field. As long as you've got access to that URL, you can then trigger that remote control activity accordingly.
Thank you. We had a couple of questions with regards to Zoho Recruit.
Zoho Recruit. Ooh. Let's have a look. Not one I'm familiar with, so let's have a look. Zoho. Wait for the machinery to work in the background. Zoho Recruit, it's there. You can work with Zoho Recruit. So there you are. You can you see here different watch for new records or create a new record. So all of these things are possible with Make. So for example, you had a new contact coming through DuxSoup. You could for example have your DuxSoup set up there and then create a new record against that, filling in the fields accordingly. I don't have a Zoho Recruit account, so I can't demonstrate that. But yeah, Zoho Recruit is certainly there. It's in beta at the moment, but to be honest, once they reach beta in there, they're usually I've never seen anybody reach beta and then not get fully released, to be honest. Usually just involves a bit of tweaking in the background, or sometimes it's just the number of users that have used it. It needs to pass that threshold to achieve full release status. So yes, Zoho Recruit is certainly in there. And yeah, all of these things, if we can help with anything, we have the possibility for you to be able to book a call with us through our tech calls, where we can try and help you walk through making sure that you're getting the correct data into the correct place where you want it and when you want it, depending upon your process. So one thing I'd always say is when you're building these sorts of scenarios, make sure you're clear in your mind what your process looks like, what data needs to be where and when, and what's going to trigger which activity. So yeah, Zoho Recruit is certainly in Make.
Thank you. That's it. There's no more questions for me or for customers.
Well, if there are further questions, the email address is at the bottom of the page there. So yeah, feel free to reach out to our fabulous support team who work incredibly hard. Yeah, please do reach out to them. I mentioned just now the technical calls. You can book those accordingly. And it says there Zapier webhooks, also includes Make as well. Yeah, feel free to reach out to our support team if you would like to book a technical session. We always record the calls as well and share any information that we go through with people on those calls. So hopefully we're able to answer all those questions and make sure that we get the processes that you want to working correctly. So yeah, feel free to reach out for those. In 2 weeks' time, Tuesday the 26th of July, we're going to be looking, it's sort of a little bit of, it's not quite back to basics, but it's looking at the easy ways to triple your LinkedIn leads. So looking at how to optimize your searching, how to effectively connect and reach out to people, and then what to do with your prospects to make sure you're getting good quality contacts, good quality prospects as efficiently as possible, using all of the tools which, you know, if you're using DuxSoup and maybe Sales Navigator and perhaps Make or Zapier or HubSpot or Pipedrive, or whatever platform you're using, how you can make sure that all of those dots are joined up as effectively as possible to optimize your automated processes to free you up to concentrate on more productive things and leave all that repetitive activity to DuxSoup and the other software that you'll have in your ecosystem. So that's coming up in 2 weeks' time. And I'll just leave it to Jin to sign off, and I'll speak to you all in 2 weeks. And if you're enjoying your summer holiday, then I wish you a very pleasant time, but I'll be back in 2 weeks.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you during our next webinar. See you very soon, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.